Hello, welcome everyone to Sport Tech Daily's episode with Rob Moody. We spent about 5 minutes trying to figure out how to describe him, but he's a cricket historian. He's got one of the biggest sort of cricketing YouTube pages on the internet as well, and we'll go into all of that in a second. But as always, welcome Rob, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Excellent. All right. So look, as always, we'll start off with yourself. Can you give us a brief overview of your background?
I'm 42. I live in Melbourne. I am a full-time musician and part-time cricket footage collector. I've mostly lived in Melbourne my whole life. Lived a bit in Queensland in the 80s. Definitely not liking the Melbourne cold, but we'll get past it. Went to school in Melbourne. Just got to year 12. After that, I started working as a musician straight away, which was good and exciting. And here we are today, 20-something years later.
Nice. Look, as a cricketing fan, I've got to say I really appreciate all the stuff that you've done on YouTube, and it's kind of funny actually speaking to the person that's put in so many hours behind a lot of the quality stuff that I've spent way too long checking out over the years. But when did it all begin for you?
With collecting cricket, well, it would have started in the early 80s.
Right.
When I was about 6 years old. Would have been the 82, 83 Ashes. It would just happen by mistake. It was just an accident, really. I mean, in Australia, VCRs, became relatively affordable by the early 80s. They were pretty much a premium item to have in the late 70s. And so we got ours around 82, 83. And it was an Aussie thing. Everyone's families would record movies off TV. Everyone had big VHS collections in their lounge rooms. You always saw it at your mates' houses. So yeah, my dad would watch movies and stuff, and at the end of the movie, there would often be this old guy introducing cricket highlights, which was Richie Benaud.
Yeah.
So I'd see the same highlights over and over again because my dad would watch the same movie over and over again. Now, so then I started to actually want to watch the highlights of the cricket, and then after a bit of time, I thought, oh, maybe I should look up when these are actually on in the TV guide and record them myself because I want to see what happens next because it was just day 2 over and over again. I had no idea what happened the next day. So I thought if I start to record these myself. So yeah, that's how it started all the way back then. Then I just kept doing it as I got older and recorded the full matches into the 90s. And then, the YouTube channel started just completely innocently as well in the late 2000s.
Right.
And yeah, it just kept going.
Yeah, nice. Almost 40 years. Wow, that sounds like a long, long time now.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, nice. And I just recently came across your Twitter page. I can't believe I've never seen it before, but notice you share some pretty cool stats on there as well, a lot from Cricinfo and other sources. Are you a big fan of sort of looking into the numbers behind the game as well?
Not as much as others, but of course, stats and numbers are a huge part of all sport, and in cricket in particular, it's pretty nutty. But occasionally you think of looking up a stat that just hasn't been out there that you haven't seen. So I'm sure heaps of us are going on to Cricinfo and got on to Stats Guru and just trying to manipulate the settings and tweaking it to see what sort of names come up, because there's the usual most wickets, most runs, most fourth innings tons, all this sort of stuff. But looking into it a bit deeper, you can find some really cool stuff. So, and it's really easy to use too. So you can find some really interesting things. And again, you get inspired by seeing other people put up, their own stats that they've managed to configure, and then you think, then your brain sort of just, goes around and you think, oh, I wonder who does have the most wickets from overseas bowler in every test country. And then you think, I've never seen that out there. So yeah, and then you think, wow, then you're really surprised with the averages and the wickets and the names, you know.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so it's often a surprise. Again, one of those things that you have time to do because you're not thinking
At the
about
moment.
anything else all day except for cricket and
Yeah.
cricket stats, which is pretty funny.
No, awesome. And just speaking of stats, I remember I just looked it up yesterday actually, but your YouTube channel, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'm going to go with Robelinda2. Is that how
We'll
you
take
pronounce
it.
it?
We'll take it. I have no idea, but that's
Yeah, close enough.
good enough for me.
But yeah, I noticed you've got, I think it's almost 700,000 subscribers and over 700 million hours watched. Are there any other crazy numbers that you can rattle off about how popular the work has been?
I haven't looked it up for a while, but at one point it was in the top 10 most watched channels in Australia, and it was in the top 30 most watched sport channels on YouTube worldwide.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sure it's overtaken by now. But
Well, what I
uh,
was going to say, sorry to cut you off. I remember at one point your channel had to be renamed or had been taken down. So are these only numbers from a specific time? Like, did the channel run as a different site or entity before then? And could you
the
be a bit
channel
more popular than
started.
they're giving you credit for?
No. It's very accurate. The first channel, without the two,
Yeah.
is still active. It
All right.
started about 2 years before the second channel, but I didn't put much on it. But it still got uh, uh, just completely uh, squashed by copyright
Right.
strikes. And so while it was serving its time in YouTube prison, I made the second channel, and then I didn't even realize when the first channel got uh, reinstated. Just
Yeah.
maybe years later, and then I realized, what's like, yeah. So like, then I thought, so I've sort of used the first channel initially when it got reinstated to upload longer videos because it didn't have any restriction for some reason. To get the second channel always had the 15-minute video limit. But I rarely use the original first one anymore. But yeah, it's still popular too, but for no reason. Like it's got
Fair enough.
junk on it.
It's just the brand, Rob. You filled your brand.
It's the brand.
Well, I was going to say, obviously, sport media and technology have come a long way in the last sort of few years. I guess, what are your views on sport broadcasting nowadays compared to, obviously, I won't quite say 1982 when this all started, but yeah, how do you think sports media and technology are coming along?
Well, it's huge, isn't it? I mean, even 5 years ago, it was different. So it's constantly evolving. But you know, as far as the media is concerned, it's largely the same. The biggest thing for me is the increase in social media and the amount of and how that's been integrated into the coverage itself. Um, and yeah, I kind of think it's probably not so good. I mean, I don't really want to know what you know Joe Idiot thinks on Twitter when it's posted on the TV during the match and the commentators are talking about the tweets. I think that's pretty average. I mean, they're not really commentators then, are they? So
Yeah.
so I want to know about the game, not what some if I want to know what someone at home thinks. I'll log onto Twitter and look, you know. So yeah, so the whole IPL style of broadcast uh, that's now inching its way into Test cricket. Uh, I think that's pretty average, but it's not necessarily all over the world. New Zealand and England coverage, I think, is still relatively respectful to the game. Uh, yeah, but some other countries, not so sure about.
Right. And when we're talking about media and tech, obviously you've put together quite a few highlights packages over the years. I guess personally, how do you feel that's evolved from, like, I guess the process of you doing it, but also what you see out there on television? Like, as a fan, it seems pretty cool what they're able to do nowadays, but I guess as you physically having to do it, how do you think that's evolved over time?
Yeah, highlights are definitely something that if the term was around in the 80s and 90s being triggered, it definitely triggered me. Some of the pathetic highlights, Channel 9's highlights were often terrible. They were often good as well. But it's definitely come a long way now, especially because the access to the footage is just
Yeah,
everywhere now. So back then, if you didn't record the match on video, it was gone. At least now, it's the footage is out there, so there's no excuse for highlights to be poor. And all the cricket boards have Facebook pages and YouTube channels
yeah,
and Twitter accounts, so they've got a whole team of people who can put up, uh, well edited and flashy looking highlights of anything they want. That's really good because that engages the fans, and
yeah.
it's high quality footage now too, which is excellent. Uh, there's no lowering of the standard of the footage like for us in the 80s, having the footage dubbed off one video onto another.
Yeah,
At least now, so yeah, that's really good.
awesome. And look, if this was a newspaper, this would be one for the gossip section. So through all the work that you've done and the sort of profile that you've built within the cricketing sphere, are there any cricket players or any celebrities that you've met through your work,
Uh,
including
Not
D-grade
very
Melbourne
many.
celebrities?
Well, one of my mates is Graham Vimpani from the Victorian Bushrangers in the 90s, and he worked with the Australian team in the early 2000s. He's pretty awesome. I met Damien Fleming at the airport. He was flying out from a big bash match, and I was flying out from a gig I was doing in Hobart.
Yeah, nice.
But no, I've hardly met anyone.
Did he
I
come
guess
up? I was just
I
going to
did
ask,
meet.
sorry, did he come up to you and ask for your signature or?
No, because no one knows what I look like until recently.
Right. Sorry, you were just going to say something. I cut you off.
Oh no, I was going to say through my work, I haven't met any cricketers. It's all just faceless stuff on YouTube, isn't it? So no, I would know until very recently, anyway. With yeah, my face getting out there a bit, but no.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool. And what are some of the strangest or funniest reactions that you've got to one of your videos?
Yeah, well, there's a lot.
Yeah,
uh, Mostly, I don't anticipate. How can you? But obviously, just recently, the crazy video of the 73 times Steve Waugh
stuff. Yeah,
burnt his teammates, even though it wasn't 73, which was the whole point of the video. But then, yeah, then the news articles galore about Shane Warne labeling Steve Waugh as selfish. That was pretty funny and completely unexpected. We had absolutely
yeah,
no idea that would happen. But especially because everyone took it the wrong way. Like, I
yeah.
hate Steve Waugh. It was the opposite. I'm trying to show that he wasn't responsible for the
Right.
runouts, but that was pretty huge. I mean, as if I can predict that I upload a video and a few hours later there's news articles about it.
Right.
It's
Cool.
just a
Well,
video.
yeah. No, there's so many things about the media you could go on for days, but let's not get into
Yeah.
that. Let's talk about cricket. What are some of your like? Obviously, you're from Melbourne. Like, are you an Australian cricket fan over a long period of time? What are some of your favorite? Who are some of your favorite cricket players over your lifetime? I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess in the 80s, Alan Border and Steve Waugh were pretty awesome.
You
David
sure about
Boone,
Steve Waugh?
yeah, definitely. In the 90s, I was always a big fan of Mark Taylor
Yep.
and Ricky Ponting, Damien Martin. But I think when I first saw Adam Gilchrist on TV around about 94, 95 for Western Australia, instantly I thought this guy's the best player in domestic cricket by miles. And over the next few years, he obviously proved that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I was thinking, like I'm sure a lot of Aussie fans were. Imagine if this guy could do half of what he's doing in domestic cricket for the Australian team.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, he did that all right.
Nice.
And that was probably the best thing I've ever seen, was seeing his uh, evolution as a international cricketer and just become so amazing, beyond what uh, anyone could possibly think.
Right.
So that
Okay.
was pretty awesome.
No, awesome. And I think I read somewhere that you're not as much of a fan as the sort of modern T20 stuff as you are of Test cricket and potentially ODI stuff. But if you had to pick out a positive from the more recent T20, say the Big Bash, who would you say that you really enjoyed watching develop in the Big Bash and T20 for Australia?
Yeah, I mean, I have enjoyed watching Chris Lynn plonk bowlers out of stadiums and at the Gabba and everything. That's been pretty good. I actually do like the Big Bash. It's
Yeah.
entertaining for what it is. It's
Yeah.
you know, the one thing I like about the domestic T20s is that you get to see more domestic players, and
Yeah.
that's been the biggest thing for me. I've always been a huge fan of domestic cricket, from watching, the McDonald's Cup in the 80s, into the FAI Cup, into the Tom Mitchell Cup. It's great to see, back in the day, guys like Ricky Ponting and, Gilchrist come in from being 20 years old or younger. So the Big Bash is good because you're seeing these guys come in at
Yeah.
18 and 19 already with the ability to hit fast bowlers out of stadiums, which is
Yeah.
insane, absolutely insane. So yeah, it's been good in general just to see the players, like Glenn Maxwell. I remember when he started, Aaron Finch, and you saw Aaron Finch in 2008-9 hitting bowlers out of the MCG, and yeah, now he's made a career out of it for Australia. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, speaking of the domestic game, I guess the last thing we were going to touch on is coronavirus and the impact of that on global sport. But I guess if you want to focus on the Australian lens, how do you think it's going to impact Australian cricket in the next, say, 12 months or so?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's an easy answer for that. I guess we're all just seeing what's going to happen, but I'll be amazed when the cricket does start again and what sort of cricket it actually is that's on TV. Be pretty weird if India tour here and every match is without crowds and at the Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
That's going to be pretty weird. But yeah, I can't imagine. I can't imagine a lot of things going back to normal in general, but a packed MCG, I just can't see that happening.
Yeah.
I can't see a packed pub, to go see a band. I just can't see that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure if, what every second seat's going to be empty at the MCG to fall in
It's
line.
still 50,000 people. That'd still be pretty good.
That's still pretty good. So yeah, I'll be very keen to see how that plays out over the next 12 months.
All right. Awesome. Cool. Well, look, it's been a really interesting chat, Rob, as I expected. Thanks for taking the time to come on board, and we'll put in a link to the YouTube channel for the 1% of people that haven't seen it already. And we'll definitely have a chat with you later down the track when there's a bit more cricket to watch.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to check out more of our content, go to sporttechdaily.com or follow us on social media across Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram.